From the heart of the Space City to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
Hey everybody, how are we? I hope y'all have had a great weekend. I had a great weekend. I was visiting San Antonio, where I am officially on the air now. The Next Gen Report affiliate in San Antonio is News Radio 1200 WOAI. You can hear me Sunday evenings at, I believe it's 10 p.m. there. They take a recording of the show because that airs a little bit earlier, and that's what they air. So, very excited about that. It was great to be in San Antonio, hang out with my aunt, see the Alamo, see all the improvements there. Great stuff there. We've got a lot to talk about today. Of course, the Epstein files, we've seen some developments there. Like I said, this was going to take time. Epstein developments aren't going to happen overnight, even when they release massive troves of files. This stuff takes time to sort through. One of the things they found as they were sorting through the Epstein files was apparently Donald Trump was calling the cops on this guy like years ago. Like in 2006, Donald Trump called the Palm Beach Police Department and said, hey, you guys need to look into this dude. He's weird. And his chick, Ghislaine Maxwell, is evil. His words, not mine. So I predict that over the next several weeks, the Democrats will all of a sudden realize that, you know, the Epstein files really aren't worth talking about. We don't need to bring it up. It's not really a big deal. Now that we found their heroes like Bill Gates in them, and as many times as Trump shows up in the files, it appears to just be either Epstein complaining about him or him complaining about Epstein to the police. So we'll see what happens there. I predict not much. Real quick, before we really get rolling, I want to kind of soft launch something. Starting on Sunday, the Next Gen Report will officially have a show sponsor. This is something I'm very excited about. I've been working towards this for a long time. I've been reaching out to people that I like, who make products and provide services that I use and I enjoy. One of the things you might notice is a couple of months ago, I started wearing suit jackets just because I wanted to look better, look more presentable now that I'm doing this video component. And one of the things that you may have noticed on my suit jacket, every single episode, is these little lapel pins. These are made by Deus Volt lapel pins. This is a guy that's based here in Texas. He makes all of these himself. I frankly love these things. I saw them online. I scrolled past them by chance on Twitter, and I bought a couple, and I loved them. So I reached out to the guy. I said, hey, I'd love to work with you. I'd love to partner with you. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. So we've talked. We align on a lot of things spiritually, politically, and of course, he makes a great product. So we are very excited to be partnering with him. That officially begins on Sunday. You'll start seeing his branding more. You'll see his products more. You'll hear ads for him if you listen on the radio. I'm very excited about it. He makes a great product. He's got a ton of different faith-based lapel pins, heritage lapel pins. You can see kind of, there's the 1824 flag that flew over the Alamo during the Battle of the Alamo, the Goliad flag. If you're a fan of Texas history, you know these flags. And of course, there's a number of other, so I'm wearing the Texas one right now. There's the Florida one on screen, Reformed Episcopal badge. This, I believe, is the PCA badge. He's got all sorts of stuff. If you're a person of faith, of any particular denomination of Christianity, or you're just a fan of American history, there is something for you on this website. Check it out, Deus Volt lapel pins. That's DEUSVULT lapelpins.com. Great product. Can't recommend it enough. And again, this isn't something he just paid me to say, because he's not paying me yet. And I reached out to him because I bought these with my money. I enjoy them. And so I'm recommending them to you. And he is partnering with this show because he likes my content as well. So anyway, with that, let's talk a little bit about the economy. I saw this and it kind of surprised me and interested me a little bit. So according to Breitbart, this is a Breitbart report about a poll, majority of Americans are unhappy with Trump's handling of the economy. Now, this kind of surprised me, and it should surprise you a little bit because I live here in Texas. I live here in Houston. broadly speaking, on an economic level, things are going pretty well. I'm pretty happy with where we're at economically. But at least roughly 1,400 people are not, on average. They're very unhappy with where we're at economically. And that's according to, let's see, who did this poll? NPR and PBS. Well, there you go. That answers the question, right? The bias is right there. NPR and PBS, and I'm not saying for sure they tipped this poll, but they definitely have motivation to tip the poll, right? Because Donald Trump defunded NPR and PBS, so I'm sure they're not happy with him. I'm sure the questions they asked were asked in a way to kind of make people feel unhappy about the economy or hint that something was going wrong, and then confirmation bias carries on from there. So that's probably what happened, if I had to guess. I'm not positive. I'm not accusing NPR of anything. I'm just saying it's a reasonable guess, right? And honestly, it does surprise me because if you actually pay attention to the news, you understand that things are actually, by and large, going fairly well. Again, they're not perfect, but they could be a lot worse. I think a big part of this is actually just where people live. If you live in a blue state, chances are you're really not doing much better. Now, that's not Trump's fault. That's the fault of your own government. And I'll give you a real-life practical example of this. This is the AAA fuel price map. Now, you can see right here in the corner, the national average price is $2.92 a gallon. That's actually fairly high because here in Texas, you look right here, our national average is $2.50, or our state average is $2.50. Now, what you see is if you go over here to the West Coast, specifically California, look at that. $4.49 a gallon for some gas. That's stupid high, and that's not Trump's fault. That's the fault of California, local leaders there, and that state's politics. All right? And that has effects up and down the economic board. That doesn't just stop at gas price. That doesn't just mean it's more expensive to take a road trip. Everything gets more expensive when gas is more expensive. So if you're in California that has super energy restrictive policies and gas is super expensive, everything else will be as well. And Donald Trump can't do anything about that. So if you're living in those blue states, don't expect anything to change anytime soon. You can elect whoever you want at the federal level, and it's not going to get better until you replace your statewide leadership. I imagine that's where a lot of the problem is with Americans, because your average everyday American in a red state is feeling pretty good. All right, we've got a lot to talk about, the Super Bowl and Bad Bunny and everything else and the economy. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Next Gen Report. All right, let's talk a little bit about voter ID, the SAVE Act. We've discussed this in detail on previous episodes of the show. I think we went into a lot of detail about this on one of the Wednesday shows. The Next Gen Report, wherever you get podcasts, it's on X @_Ethan Buchanan. You can watch the full episode there where we talked about this. It has continued to be one of, if not the biggest kind of political stories of, I guess, the weekend, really. This act is still making its way through Congress. I don't believe it's actually had a House vote yet, but I could be wrong on that, and I may have missed it. But it has continued to be talked about. Here was Donald Trump yesterday, actually, once again talking about how important it is to have voter ID, how important it is to have trust in the system, the type of trust that comes from knowing, hey, it has been guaranteed that the only people voting in these elections are people who are authorized to do so. Take a listen.
Do we have other things in mind? Yeah, we do. We have things in mind. We have perfecting a little bit of what we did, because this is the biggest bill ever passed in the history of Congress. And it's a great thing. But we also have other bills we want to get. We want to get the Save America Act passed. Save America is on voting. We want people to have voter ID. We want people to have proof of citizenship. And we want to have no mail-in ballots other than if you're in the military or you're sick or you're away or some reasonable but good excuse.
Can that get done, you think, before the midterm elections?
It polls at about 94%, including Democrats are at 87%, other than Democrat politicians because they cheat.
It's a huge vote. I guess the House is going to re-vote on it because of the photo ID,
right?
Which is so important. Actually, you need a photo ID to vote on the floor of the House, even though Democrats are opposed to a photo ID.
That's right.
They can't vote for their own bill.
But think of it, Larry. So you have a thing called Save America Act. Save America Act. And Schumer's going to say, I oppose it. How do you oppose Save America? So this is simply on voting. Voter ID. We want a statement that you are a citizen of America. I think that's a reasonable thing to ask. And no mail-in ballots, which are very corrupt. No country in the world is doing mail-in ballots, or especially the way we do them. I mean, they send them all over the place. Nobody knows. It's totally corrupt. No country in the world does what we do.
And he's right. We have some of the most lax voter standards in the world. And I think to a certain extent that is a good thing because, like I've said in the past, you want states to have a lot of autonomy here. You want states to be able to feel like they're allowed to set their rules and nobody is forcing them to be represented or to represent themselves in a certain way. But that only works to a certain extent. Eventually, you get to the point where people are taking advantage of the system, and that's where we're at right now. And that's why, like President Trump pointed out there, so many people do indeed support photo ID for voting. It's not controversial. It's not really a left or right issue. Most Americans support this, and that's not just me saying it. That's not just Donald Trump saying it. Here is, the White House did put this up, but this is a number of other sources that they cite here that all say that, hey, actually, voter ID is popular. Pew Research, 83% of Americans favor requiring all voters to show government-issued photo ID. 95% of Republicans, 71% of Democrats. So, like I said, not a left or right issue. This is a vast majority of even Democrats support this. Gallup, 84%. 98% Republicans, 84% independents, 67% of Democrats. This is a popular issue. This is something that the GOP is absolutely right to push. And again, this should mean a lot coming from me if you know me. I am not the type of person that should say the federal government should be involved in regulating anything. But we have reached a point where in order to restore, I guess, national trust in the elections, national trust in each other, for me to trust the results of an election coming out of any blue state, this is necessary. It is. Regardless, it's probably not going to get passed, at least not before the midterms. Senator John Thune, he's the Republican majority leader in the Senate. He's going out and saying, hey, we don't have the votes to do this in the Senate, which is true. They definitely don't. Remember, to pass a bill like this in the Senate, you do need 60 votes to overcome the filibuster. There has been talk about nuking the filibuster in order to pass this. I don't know if it's a good idea. I just don't. I'm very hesitant to do that because I'm sure the Democrats would take advantage of it. Now, maybe we can change the filibuster rules or kind of tweak it temporarily, maybe in order to facilitate the passage of the SAVE Act. That's risky to me. And I'm not the only one. I know the Republicans do not have the votes to nuke the filibuster. And without nuking the filibuster, they don't have the votes to pass the SAVE Act. So the chances it gets passed, at least before the midterms, are slim to none. But what's crazy to me and what I really want to point out to you here is that the Democrats are still continuing to push lies about this bill. Now, I've shown you the polling that says it's popular. I don't know if the Democrats have seen that polling. If they have, I have to wonder why they're still saying things like what Elizabeth Warren says here. She was I guess ambushed by somebody with Lindell TV. I believe that's the My Pillow guys network or online show or what have you. But here is Elizabeth Warren continuing to spew the lie that, oh, this would mean you have to have a birth certificate, which is just not the case. Take a listen.
The SAVE Act is expected to be brought this week to the floor for a vote. Do you support voter ID for elections?
Well, it depends on what you mean by voter ID. When you want to say that everyone has to produce a birth certificate, including women whose married names are not on their birth certificates, that creates a real problem for me.
Well, isn't that just one of the first steps in getting married is getting a new ID?
Actually, it's not getting a new birth certificate, because part of what the SAVE Act does is it says most driver's licenses around the country won't work as an ID. And that creates a terrible problem.
But you need an ID to do just about anything in America. Shouldn't you need one to
vote in elections? You don't need a birth certificate. I hope you know that.
I hope you know that. I truly hope you do. I'm worried about you, sweetheart. I hope you know that. She's full of crap. I've shown you the text of the SAVE Act before, and I'll show it to you again. Here it is. A form of identification issued consistent with the requirements of the Real ID Act of 2005 that indicates the applicant is a citizen of the United States. So again, this would be any driver's license that's up to date, because every single state in the country, as of a year or two ago, is compliant with this. This is the text of the SAVE Act I just showed you. And again, this idea that, this would hurt married women, this would prevent them from voting, it's preposterous. I just got married. My wife just recently, inside of the last 12 months, went and legally changed her name and got a new up-to-date ID. It was super easy. Super easy. I believe she did it online. She didn't even have to go anywhere. I might be wrong. She may have had to go in. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I should ask her. But I know she did it, and I know she did it recently, and I know it didn't take that long. I think from the time that we got married in May, by the end of August, she had her new ID. And you've got plenty of notice between now and the next election to go do that. It's not hard. But the Democrats are continuing to push the lie that, it is difficult. It is repressive. You would need a birth certificate. She's just making this stuff up. And again, maybe we'll give her the benefit of the doubt. She really does want to make sure that married women can still go out and vote. That's a moot point. So what are you doing? This is popular with everybody, including people in your own party. So the only reason that I can think of logically for you to openly lie, it's very possible that she hasn't even bothered to read the act yet. I'm not going to say that's impossible. But the only reason she would either be so ignorant of this to as not even to bother reading the law, or have read the law and still decide to openly lie, is she wants to facilitate illegal voting. That's the only logical answer to this. And again, I'm not trying to accuse her of anything. I hope I'm wrong. I hope she's a good person and we're just misunderstanding, but I doubt it. I doubt it. Because again, it's not hard to find. I found it for you. Congress.gov/bill. You can find it for yourself, but I've showed it to you. All right, we'll be right back. All right. I want to stay on this for just a second because the Democrats are not the only reason we're not going to get voter ID passed. There are also some Republicans who deserve to be shamed and mocked and teased for all of this. And one of those is Lisa Murkowski, who went out and said, no, I'm not going to vote for it. She, I believe, is one of the senators from Alaska. I think I could be getting this state wrong. I don't know. Alaska. Here it is. She said in a post on X on Tuesday, this is according to Fox News, that she would oppose forthcoming legislation that would enact more stringent election integrity laws backed by both Trump and conservatives in the upper chamber. Her opposition underscores a reality many in the Senate already acknowledge. Without extraordinary steps such as nuking the filibuster or support from Democrats, a non-starter, which again is ridiculous. Why is that a non-starter? The effort is effectively dead on arrival. Now, listen, they're not wrong. It is effectively dead on arrival. My point is it shouldn't be. My point is we should have all of the Republicans and all of the Democrats in on this. We should. Because again, it's nationally popular. Literally everyone wants this. And not just like a 51%, not just a bare majority. This is a super majority issue where even at least almost 70% of the Democrats are in on this. But regardless, even Republicans are flip-flopping on this, which is stupid. She said, now I'm seeing such proposals such as the SAVE Act and MEGA that would effectively do just that. Once again, I do not support these efforts. I believe, here it is. Not only does the U.S. Constitution clearly provide states the authority to regulate the times, places, and manner of holding elections, but one-size-fits-all mandates from Washington, D.C. seldom work in places like Alaska. Now, listen, like I said, I'm partial to this argument. But unfortunately, we have moved past the point where that is a viable reality. And that's what I think Lisa Murkowski does not understand. The old way of doing things doesn't work because it was taken advantage of. Like when John Adams said this Constitution only works for a moral and religious people, this is kind of what he was talking about. This broadly libertarian system only works as long as people aren't taking advantage of it. And the problem that we've seen is that in blue states primarily, especially California and New York, those states are not inhabited by immoral and religious people who understand because it's taught in scripture that cheating is wrong and we shouldn't defraud our neighbors in other states. They don't care about that anymore. They care about power. And so they're taking advantage of the libertarian system we have in order to hold on to power, gain more power. When that happens, you have to address it. As much as I want to be a libertarian, I'm also a realist, all right? And this is the reality of the situation. Now, moving on from that, let's talk about Gene Wu. Gene Wu, if you're not familiar, he is a Texas Democrat. He represents the Houston area in the Texas State House. This, I believe, is a couple of years old, but it just recently got dug up. And it's telling that it took just now to find out about this. He was on tape several years ago, openly saying what almost effectively amounts to a call for a race war, I think. But again, it didn't crop up for basically 2 years. Nobody noticed that he had said this all those years ago until it cropped up this weekend. Now, I want you to actually take a listen to what Gene Wu says here, and then we can kind of piece it out together and kind of make sense of it.
I always tell people the day the Latino, African American, Asian, and other communities realize that they share the same oppressor is the day we start winning. Because we are the majority in this country now. We have the ability to take over this country and to do what is needed for everyone and to make things fair. But the problem is our communities are divided. They're completely divided. And I talk about this.
So we just need to band together and unite everybody and take out the common enemy, which is presumably white people. He didn't explicitly say this, but that's kind of what he's saying. White people, or the Asian people and black people and Hispanic people all share the same oppressor. That leaves white people. That means we're the oppressor. I haven't oppressed anybody, all right? I didn't oppress anyone. So why am I lumped into this? What did I do? What did I do? Nothing. I have oppressed no one. Regardless, Gene Wu sees me as the oppressor. That's what he said there. We have the same oppressor. So we need to band together and take over. And then if we all just unite and overthrow the oppressor, we can make this fair for everyone. You know who else said those kinds of things? Stalin, Chairman Mao, every communist dictator in history, because that's what this is. And when you realize that Gene Wu was at birth a Chinese national and didn't immigrate here till later, that's who he is, it all makes sense. It makes sense that this guy is pushing communist ideology against white people for whatever reason. And again, I didn't do anything to anybody. I don't have anything against anybody. I'm content to go along and get along with everybody. But this guy sees me as the oppressor. And now I say, oh, he just sees himself as just the agent of China or whatever. That's what I see him as. That's what he looks like. That's how he's talking right there in that clip. He clearly doesn't see himself as an American, and he openly says that in the same interview. Take a listen to this. Michelle GCR, the Shell Bell, she's someone that I enjoy interacting with a lot on Twitter. I don't think she and I see eye to eye on everything. I believe she's more of a moderate Democrat. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. But she's also calling Gene Wu out for this. Take a listen to what he says in this clip.
right? That like my people built the railroads.
Your people didn't build the railroads, unless he's just talking about ethnic Chinese people. He's referencing the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, which there were involved in that process a whole lot of Chinese immigrants. Again, he immigrated here after he was born in China. So it wasn't his people. It's not like his ancestors built the railroads and he's been here ever since. So unless he's just referring to Chinese nationals built the railroads, which would give you a little bit of a hint of how he sees himself. He sees himself primarily as a Chinese national. And that makes sense. Now, what I need you to understand is that Gene Wu is not the only person who thinks like this. This belief system has become commonplace on the left. White people are the oppressors of all minorities is not some fringe thing anymore. Everyday average elected officials think like this and govern like this. And I'll give you an example. This also blew up over the last few days. Louisville mayor joins criticism of judge's decision to reduce a violent defendant's sentence to less than half of what the jury recommended. Public criticism continues after a Jefferson County judge cuts a violent offender sentence to less than half. Christopher Thompson was convicted of kidnapping a woman in 2023. He robbed the victim and sexually abused her multiple times. Judge Tracy Davis rejected a jury's recommendation of 65 years for Thompson, opting to give him 30 years and a chance for rehabilitation. What's crazy here is her reason for doing this. And we know her reason for doing this. She openly said it. Here's the news report where she explains why she did it. The reason she did this was because this poor black man was a victim of the system of white people. She didn't say that explicitly, but it's pretty easy to infer that. And he was just victimized, and that's why he did what he did. So he needs a chance to redeem himself. Here she is saying that.
But Judge Davis thought the jury's recommendation was too long. She feels he hasn't mentally matured yet and never had a real shot at getting any help early in life.
But if you were to come in here and instead of being hurt and angry, which is what this court hears, right, as a 20-year-old African-American male that has been, experienced this society, etc., and you would show that, yes, okay, this is the situation, this is who I am. I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to be in jail for forever.
Thompson.
That's why she did it. I don't know what happened with my mic there. That's why she did it. And she openly said it. He's experienced society and what have you. How about maybe he's just a bad person? How about that? How about maybe he just robbed and raped a woman and he should be in jail for the foreseeable forever because there's a good chance he'll do it again. And as we'll get into in the next segment a little bit before we talk about the Super Bowl halftime show, he clearly does not make any bones about what he did. He's not sorry even a little bit. He has no problem with the actions he committed, and yet he still is being given a pass for it by this judge who just says, oh, you're just a poor victim of society, of the system. This is what you've had to deal with as an African American. Why are we making excuses for these people? It's because we need to band together, like Gene Wu said. All of the black and brown folks need to band together to make everything fair. Or how about everybody just be treated the same under the law? And if you do a heinous crime, you go to jail for a long time. That shouldn't be controversial. All right, let's keep going. Now, I had mentioned that the suspect in this case, who had his sentence cut in half by a judge who it appears her only motivation for cutting his sentence was, oh, this guy has just been so abused by society, I have to take it upon myself to correct this evil. She was just like, oh, you just need to learn to overcome your conditions and you'll become a good person and you'll have a chance at reform and we'll all be happy. And the entire time she's saying this in the courtroom, this guy who committed this heinous crime of robbing a woman and raping her multiple times is sitting here going, no, this is who I am. This is who I am. I don't care about the victim. I don't care about what I did. I don't care what you sentenced me to. I'm happy. I did my crime and I'm happy. I don't care about you. I don't care about nothing. And that's not just me saying that. Once again, it's in the report that aired on television. I don't know what channel this is. Credit to whoever originally did it. But this is, again, the local TV report about this case, picking right up where we left off, where this guy immediately says, no, I don't care about any of this. I would do it again.
Thompson repeatedly stated he did not care, not about his sentence, the victim, or her family. But Judge Davis emphasized she's the one that holds the pen, and regardless of what the media may think, she applies the law. To her, 65 years was an extremely long time. As she puts it, it's his whole life, one she doesn't believe should be spent entirely behind bars.
This court does not believe that Mr. Thompson, if given the resources that he can get while incarcerated, is beyond being rehabilitated.
But Judge,
I believe that, and he believes that too. Again, it doesn't really show it in this news report, but here is more courtroom footage from this day where you can hear plainly what he has to say. Take a listen to what he has to say about all of this.
Mr. Thompson, I'm gonna need you to be respectful.
I ain't doing nothing.
Well, it's fine. Okay?
What?
It's fine.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
Spit on y'all,
at the end of the day, I'm the one with the pen.
Sentencing.
At the end of the day, I'm the one with the pen. I need you to be respectful. No, I'm not going to be respectful. F you. If I could spit on you, I would spit on you. I ain't being respectful. Again, his words, he literally said it. I just played you the audio. This is insane. This is insane. But this is how people think. This guy is just a victim of the evil white society. And so I'm going to cut him a break. All right. Now, moving on from that, let's talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. I've seen a lot of people opine about the Super Bowl halftime show. Now, listen, I watched the whole Super Bowl. I watched the halftime show. I also simultaneously had the Turning Point USA counter-programming halftime show up on my phone. I was kind of watching both. I had on my aunt's TV the Super Bowl, and then on my phone, I was keeping an eye on the Turning Point show just because I wanted to keep an eye on both. And I've heard a lot of people say a lot of different things about the Super Bowl. Obviously, the Republicans hated it. The right hated it. The right was always going to hate it. And of course, the left loves it. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread to the left. Now, do they know who Bad Bunny is? No, they're all 80-year-old geriatric Democrats. Do they speak Spanish? No. Do they know what any of the lyrics to any of his songs mean or even reference? No, they have no clue. But, oh, this is beautiful Hispanic culture. And I've even heard Hispanic people that, you know, I consider friends and I know and I'm close with saying, oh, yes, it was great to see Hispanic culture. If that was the representation of Hispanic culture, that's a bad representation, okay? Because it was vulgar. The whole thing was just vulgar. That's all it was. There was one wedding. Like there was, I believe, an actual wedding that took place during the halftime show, and it was a traditional straight wedding between two Hispanic people. And everybody goes, oh, look, see, it was just about family values. And then every single song was all about all of the different people that Bad Bunny was having sex with all over the world. That was every song. And then you look at the dancers, and it's all just Hispanic women shaking booty. Very aggressively, very scantily clad. It's the type of show that you would say this is not appropriate for children. And children were watching because it's the Super Bowl. This is supposed to be available on a national level to everybody. It's just a fun sporting event. But if you're a decent person, you shoot your kid out of the room because it was very obviously sexually degenerate. And I'm not going to pretend to be shocked by this. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be a Puritan. I've come to expect this. It's the Super Bowl. This is what music is, for better or for worse. Probably for worse. So I'm not surprised. All right. There's a million different takes you can have on this, but it definitely wasn't American. All right? At the end of the day, it was not American. And I would not really believe that it's Hispanic either. Because most of the Hispanics I know are very family-oriented, hardworking, religious people who would have looked at that and said, oh my God, that's gross and disgusting. I need to go pray. So I don't know what it was, but it definitely wasn't for us. And by us, I mean Americans generally. Brianna Lyman, she was on with Sean Hannity on Fox, and she, I think, had a very good take about the Super Bowl. It kind of looked like a humiliation ritual. That was her point. And I think that's right. I think that was a humiliation ritual, not just for Americans, but also for Hispanic people, because again, it was gross, and all the Hispanic people I know are upstanding religious folk. But here's Brianna Lyman. She's with the Federalist. Here she is on Hannity, having a discussion about what she thinks this Super Bowl halftime show was.
You know, Sean, I get the libertarian instinct here, right? And under normal circumstances, sure, fine, turn the TV off. But the Super Bowl and the halftime is one of the last shared cultural moments that Americans have that is recognizably ours, right? Football was created by Americans for Americans. It is not an international pastime. It is an American pastime. And yet Americans were forced to sit through one of the biggest cultural events of the year being conducted in a language that is not ours, with symbols that are not ours, with foreign flags overshadowing our flags. And it felt for a lot of Americans like we were not invited to partake in a civic experience. If anything, it felt like we were invited to bear witness to the replacement of ours. And when you have people guilting us out of our God-given right to our sovereignty and our borders and our laws, to watch our language be replaced by a foreign language, to watch a foreign culture elevated above ours during a traditional American experience, it felt a bit like a humiliation ritual.
Now, at the end of the day, is this really all that big of a deal? Not really. The world will spin ever onward, and the next Super Bowl will be just as woke, if not more, and the world will continue to spin on after that one too. But at the same time, she's right. The Super Bowl is supposed to be a big cultural American moment for the entire nation. It's supposed to be all of ours. We're supposed to feel welcome and able to watch it, and it's just part of being American. So you are right to be a little bit upset if you feel like you were excluded from that. And I think a lot of Americans, including Hispanic Americans, that are upstanding people and not sexual degenerates, were probably a little bit upset by that show too, or at least they should be. And so that's fine. But at the end of the day, the real ultimate metric for that halftime show was, did people enjoy it broadly? And despite what the left says, I think it's pretty obvious that nobody really had a good time. And I'll prove it to you. Here is footage from the stadium. Inside the stadium, here's the crowd during that halftime show. Now, the music is playing. I've muted it because I don't want to get copy struck. But everybody's just kind of standing around. Now, I've listened to this, and this is a upbeat moment. The crowd here should be going bananas. They should be dancing. And you can see there's a few people that are kind of nodding their head a little bit. Yeah, whatever. Because there's a beat. You nod your head when there's a beat. But nobody's having a great time. Nobody's going ballistic. You don't see the things that we saw when Michael Jackson did the Super Bowl, where he comes up out of the stadium and the crowd goes nuts. Because nobody knows what anything is here. Nobody knows what he's saying. Nobody knows what the songs are about. Nobody knows what's going on. These are primarily Americans who go to the Super Bowl, and clearly this was not for them, and they can tell. And they can tell. That's the reality. It wasn't for us, and that's fine, I guess, but that's your target audience, and they clearly were not having a good time. All right, that is all I have got on this and everything else for the day. Sunday, 7 p.m. on AM 950 KPRC. As well as in Dallas and San Antonio, 7 p.m. in Dallas on KFXR, 10 p.m. in San Antonio on WOAI. We will see you there for more of the Next Gen Report. I am Ethan Buchanan. Thank you very much for listening.